old Christians before Islam swept over the area. And there are also some odd other groups. For instance, there are pre-Christian, semi-Christian groups who Saddam Hussein tried to destroy, called the Mandans. And they're a unique group. They're daily bathers, and that goes way back to the period that I work on with the Dead Sea Scrolls. Those are daily bather groups. And they wear white. They have priests who are called Nusayra or Nazarene, the way Christians were first called back in the old period, and they follow the teaching. They say whether they do or not, I can't affirm, of John the Baptist, and not of Jesus. They follow John the Baptist. They're followers of John the Baptist, and they're, as I said, they emphasize bathing and so on. So that's a very old group that has survived to the present. And they lived in the sort of marshes of southern Iraq. You know, that's a big river delta there, like New Orleans, like the mouth of the Mississippi. That's the mouth of the Tigris and the Euphrates River. And there's a delta there where people lived really on houseboats among the reeds. I don't like to call it swamps because it's more like a watery, reeded area. So most of the Mandans lived there. And Saddam, actually for some reason, I don't know what his rationale was, I don't think he was particularly anti-Christian as such, but he wanted to drain the swamps for some reason and destroy their habitat, and he forced a lot of them out of that area, sort of population control activity. And since the invasion, if you want to call it, the American-led coalition, if you want to call it invasion or whatever, if you're against it, you call it an invasion. If you're for it, you call it something else. Since that time, they've sort of been reinvigorating, reflooding the swamps so that these people, I guess, can have their old lifestyle back, which is a very interesting thing that's going on there. That will sort of tickle in my throat, so I'll just open this up, hopefully it'll go away. So if I start keep coughing, you'll understand. I don't know where it came from, but there it is. So these people still, so there are these funny survivor groups that exist. So take even the Kurds, for instance. They're a very old group, very old group. They're known in Roman times. They actually were very Judaized in Roman times. We have stories about them and conversion to some extent into Judaism. Then they became Christianized. Then they became Islamicized. So there's a whole development of the Kurds in northern Iraq. They've been there long before any other groups were there. They've been given the worst time of all by everybody. Again, I'm off the subject here, but since we're talking about Islam, Arabs, and so on, I thought we would bring contemporary things to make it more vivid for you. To my way of thinking, and if I drew a map of, I was going to draw a map of the Arabian Peninsula, but since Iraq is so much in the news here, draw a picture of Iraq, you know, here are the rivers that come down here. This is the marsh area in the south, where the marsh Arabs, as they're called, most of the Mandans lived until recently. Baghdad is up here someplace. But the Kurds are up here, and they spread out into Turkey and northern Syria here and into Iran there. They're actually a very big group. And they've been given the so-called shaft, if you want to call it that, by everybody. By the British, who established Iraq in its present form, who put it together out of these multiple pieces. They always did this kind of thing, the British. They put areas together that may not have belonged together, classically speaking. Then they used to use minorities to dominate majorities, so that the minority would be completely indebted to them, and that's something that was happening in Iraq. The British map drawing took place after the First World War in the wake of the Versailles Peace Conference, where they were given mandates for all these places. They were given a mandate for Palestine, and you know the mess they made out of Palestine. They had Cyprus, and they made a huge mess out of Cyprus. Turks and the Greeks are still fighting each other. India, They made a huge mess out of that, even though Indians worship British culture. Huge killing occurred when they left because they put the minority over the majority there. They put the minority over the majority in Cyprus. They did the same in Iraq. In India, as you know, the Muslims and Hindus started killing each other in a ferocious manner on the British departure, and they divided the place up now into 2 countries, 3 countries in fact. And even today, there's no peace between them, whereas earlier they were more or less living in harmony. So, you know, a lot of this map drawing can be given to India, to British responsibility in a lot of these areas. Palestine is an atrocious example. Palestine, well, the mandate for Palestine was on 2 sides of both of the river. It was given to them by the League of Nations, and it incorporated the whole area from the Mediterranean to the Iraq border. That is all of Jordan and so on, which is very underpopulated. And what the British did was cut 3/4 of that away in a unilateral action that was never confirmed by anybody, and gave it to a family from Mecca called the Sharifs of Mecca that had helped them in the war against the Turks in the revolt that you may have seen if you've seen the Lawrence of Arabia movies. And so in taking 3/4 of the territory away, they squeezed the whole Arab-Jewish problem into the remaining quarter on the other side of the Jordan River. I think in the original mandate for Palestine, there was plenty of room to solve the issue of the rights of both peoples within this huge landmass, but what they did instead was squeeze the whole issue into the right bank of the Palestinian, of the Jordan River, instead of, like, the left bank in any case. That's why they called it Transjordan when they cut that away. And so finally, instead of 2 states emerging out of the Palestine mandate, 3 states are now emerging out of the Palestine mandate, 2 of which hardly have any room to breathe, the Palestinian and the Israeli state, and are at each other's throats. Whereas the 3rd state gets away scot-free because the British worked it out that way. And to my mind, that was illegitimate from the beginning in terms of what was done. So a lot of these problems were created by British administrative officials. Not that necessarily things would have gotten any better or worse. All I'm just saying is a lot of things occurred. Iraq is another example. You may not know this, but again, these mandates were given out by the League of Nations from 1922 on. The French got Syria and Lebanon, and that's another huge story of a mess. And they also got, the British got mandates for Kenya.